All right, if you want to go down the organic lawn care route, that's the route that I take almost all the time in my lawn. The one thing, like before we even start talking about ingredients and nutrients and like applications, the one thing that you really need to understand with organic lawn care is that nothing that you put down is going to look like it's making an effect in the next few days. You could apply a very heavy dose of anything down and wait a couple weeks, and you might be thinking, I don't know, did it work? Was it worth it? Organic lawn care is a long play. Organic gardening, organic anything, organic agriculture, they're all long plays. When we apply stuff to the ground, we should not expect instant results. But I guarantee you that if you stick to this concept in lawn care over the course of a year or two, you're going to be blown away by the results. Now, the second most important thing also has very little to do with the actual nutrients that we put down. Temperature matters enormously when it comes to organic applications. When I apply organics to the lawn, I don't ever apply organics really in the late fall. And that's because soil temperatures drop low enough that the product is not ever going to be used by the lawn at that period of time. Now, the exception to that is when I put my winterization application down, which is so far late in the fall that soil temperatures have dropped where I live all the way down to around 40 degrees and the grass is semi-dormant. I don't want the organic fertilizers to be used at that time of year. I want the beneficial fungi in my lawn to slowly break those products down over winter so that they are ready to be used by the grass systems at the end of winter and the beginning parts of spring. Because if I wait to the beginning parts of spring to put organics down, again, they can't be broken down and used yet because the grass, although the grass might be waking up, the soil microbiology is still so sluggish that it's not going to break the products down fast enough. Let's take a look at these products. Before I turn the camera around toward them, I want you to understand that I wholeheartedly attempt to show many different brands because I think the active ingredient usually is more important than the brand packaging it. Right now I've got a lot of extra products packed up in boxes, so I can't show you everything. What I have here is just what I have available at the time. I've got a Dr. Earth product. I've got a handful of Lawn Box products. I've got a Down to Earth alfalfa meal product. I've got Scott's. I've got some Lawn Bright products, and then I've got a couple additives that I like to throw in. I've also got an interesting product over here called Weed Wipeout, which I'm going to talk to you about. But before I start talking about any of the and I got some mycorrhiza here too. Before we start talking about any specific products or active ingredients, we need to understand with organic lawn care, no matter what product you're putting down, you're getting a whole lot of extra stuff that's frequently not even listed on the label. For instance, if you apply alfalfa meal, you're getting a little bit of nitrogen, a tiny bit of phosphorus and potassium, but you're also getting some amino acids from the alfalfa meal, which are not on the label, and you're getting something called tricontinol, which is naturally occurring in alfalfa meal. And I love that because it stimulates additional root development in the lawn. Now, if you're going to use something like a product, any product whatsoever that contains kelp in it. This is seaweed or kelp. This also coming with humic acid, but anything with kelp in it is going to have cytokinins. Cytokinins is not part of the NPK ratio, but here you go, cytokinins. You can get a dedicated cytokinin product. If you're putting cytokinins on the ground, then that's also going to be spurring additional root development. Not to mention the fact that kelp has its own trace nutrients in it. So when you apply a kelp-based product to your lawn, there's no NPK ratio on this. But I guarantee you that there's plenty of trace nutrients in the kelp product. Humic acid is going to help your lawn uptake nutrients that are in the soil already. So there's lots of times there's nutrients in our lawn soils that our grass systems can't access. It's kind of like bound up. And the humic acid, along with the fulvics that are inside the humic acid, help those nutrients get sucked up into the plant system for use. Now, another thing to point out when we're talking about organics in the context of lawn fertilizers is all of the products. I mean, this right here is made of alfalfa meal, which I have over there, and it's made of feather meal. Feather meal is obviously it's from birds. You are literally getting this entire bag. 7% of it is the nutrients, but what's the other 93%? The other 93% is largely just organic matter that goes into the lawn. It's not actually used as nutrients for the grass, but it goes into the soil as organic matter. We want organic matter in our soil, and that's what you get when you apply these things. Not to mention the fact that you're getting all the amino acids that come from the root source, like the source of the product. Over here on this Grass Genie product, you're getting soybean meal in here. Now, you're also getting sodium nitrate. Now, sodium nitrate, this is something that is important. Most organic sources of nitrogen are coming from like soybean meal or alfalfa meal or feather meal or meat meal. But sodium nitrate is actually considered an organic source of nitrogen, and it's also the relative base, or the thing that everything is relative to on the salt index. It's actually quite high. Salt index number is 100. Everything is relative to that. So although it's not a plant or animal-based source of nitrogen, it's considered OMRI listed, OMRI certified as an ingredient. Because of the saltiness of the product, you can't over apply that. Now, if you were to just dump alfalfa meal on the ground on accident, or if you were to just dump like malorganite on the ground on accident, it's not going to burn the lawn because the salt index on these things is like in the single digits. It's tiny. But if you were to dump down anything containing sodium nitrate as one of its nitrogen sources, there is potential for burning. It's probably unlikely that I'm going to dump an entire bag of Grass Genie down on 20 square feet, but it's worth noting. All right, here's another quick little thought that I had that I think is important. I forgot to mention it before, so I'm adding this in midstream here. Animal waste fertilizers, chicken manure, steer manure, things like that. These are things that I don't recommend for lawns. And the reason for that is they are very messy, they're very stinky, they can be very high in the salt index. You can very easily burn lawns. They're very heavy and dense, although you might be tempted to throw some of them down because they are high in nitrogen and certainly they're natural. I just don't recommend it for lawns. Now, I'd also like to say that for organic fertilization, the amount of nitrogen you put down is not as important as it is in conventional or synthetic fertilization. Nitrogen is king when you're throwing down synthetics. With organics, you want a vast array of stuff going into the lawn. You want some nitrogen, a little bit of phosphorus, a little bit of potassium. You want the micronutrients and the trace stuff. But what's really cool is when you start throwing in the organic additives like mycorrhiza. Now, mycorrhiza is something that we want mycorrhiza in the soil. It creates symbiotic relationships with the grass root systems. You can tap into extra nutrients, extra water if your grass root systems are connected to a mycorrhizal network underground. This is an awesome product. This is a soluble thing, and you can just mix it into a small little hose end sprayer and just spray it all over the lawn. This is actually something I applied last year in December to the lawn. And of course, as you can see, say hi, Jake.
Hi.
Is the lawn good?
Yeah.
Don't oversell it, man. The lawn looks great. Mycorrhiza not only helps your grass tap into nutrients that it can't get otherwise, but it also helps your grass tap into moisture and water deep underground that your grass root systems can't access otherwise. The same thing goes for the humic acids, which you see are included in this liquid product and over here in this soil building product from Lawn Box is heavy in humic acids as well. This Lawn Box product actually includes an array of those organic plant-based acids that I talked about before. Certainly you can just buy humic acid completely all on its own and apply it to the lawn. You don't need to buy it in a, I don't know, like a packaged product like I just showed you. All right, I'm gonna have to pause every now and then in this video to push my daughter on the swing. But that's the life of a dad who works at home. All right, as you'll see, here we got Scott's Natural Lawn Food. This is chock full of more animal-based sources. You got feather meal, meat meal, bone meal is actually the source of phosphorus that they have in here. So in organic products, phosphorus is sometimes a little bit harder to find. Some people don't like using Milorganite, which has 4% of that bag is phosphorus. I use that just fine. I have no problems using that and still calling my lawn organic. But if you don't want to use a biosolid, then anything with bone meal is going to achieve the goal. Or you can use something that contains seabird guano, which is a 0-11-0. So seabird guano, what I've experimented with is steeping it in water and creating a liquid spray. So if you need to supplement a little bit more phosphorus into your lawn, that's also pretty easy to do. I don't have the seabird guano here. It's packed up in a box, but I have featured it on the channel before. Typically with adding extra phosphorus to the lawn, that's usually a scenario where you're putting grass seed down, or if you happen to have a soil test showing that your lawn is deficient in phosphorus, then there you go. That's why you would do it. Now, I'm also a very big proponent of getting adequate, plenty amounts of potassium into the lawn. Depending on what organic product you're using, it might be a little bit skimpy on the potassium. The Scott's Lawn Food that I just showed you is an 11-2-2. It's got some potassium in it, and the source, the organic source of that potassium, is sulfate of potash, which you're going to find in almost all of these organic products, sulfate of potash. So if you want to use something in the organic space that is lower on the potassium scale, I like to have, like, if you're looking at an NPK ratio, my ideal ratio is an 8-2-5. So I like to have a little bit more than 50% of my nitrogen input paired with potassium. Does that make sense? Basically, if I'm gonna put a pound of nitrogen down on the ground, I kind of want more, a little bit more than half a pound of potassium going down at the same time, or at least I got to figure out how to keep that ratio in line over the course of a season. So if the product that you're looking at is a little bit low, you could just go out of your way to mix products together, or you could buy a simple bag of straight sulfate of potash, which is what I did. So anytime I feel like I need an extra dose of potassium, I can just add a little bit of sulfate of potash to my granular spreader and spread it on the lawn to kind of top me off a little bit. Now, there's many brands that make sulfate of potash. The brand doesn't really matter, but if you want to stick with pure organics, you're going to stay away from muriate of potash. Muriate of potash is a cheaper version, and it's just not OMRI listed. It's processed differently. This is the potassium source used in mixed bags of fertilizer for organic use. Alternatively, one thing that I've done before is I've literally put langbonite down on the lawn, which is a 0022, I think it is. 22% is potassium. It's a little bit harder to spread on the lawn through a granular spreader. It comes out very fast, so you got to be careful. So if you don't really want to use like it's still natural, but they manufacture the little prills for these sulfate of potash bags. So if you don't want to use those kinds of like manufactured prills, then langbonite is a pretty good option. Also, langbonite, you can't burn your lawn. You don't want to over apply because of waste, but over application on accident isn't that big of a deal like it is with some other products. For organic lawn care, I put down earthworm castings as well. So I don't do this, more than like once a year, maybe every 18 months or so. But Earthworm castings on the lawn are spectacular. I mean, they've got everything under the sun in them, and they stimulate health like nobody's business. So earthworm castings are another one of those products that are a little bit harder to get onto the lawn. They don't go through spreaders very well. But if you've got some time and some muscle and you do a little bit at a time, you can do that. I've never used a peat moss spreader to spread these things, but I don't think I would try it because it's a really fine particle and it'll just fly through it. So this is just a harder one to put on the lawn, but it's worth it if you take it on. Similarly, and actually easier, one other easier option, and I don't have it here, I've done it on the lawn many times, is I put azomite on the lawn. So you can get kind of this powdered version of azomite, but if you look around, you can also get a kind that has it's more of a granular sort of thing. The granular one spreads on the lawn very easily, and what's cool about it, although it has basically a 0.000 NPK ratio, it is chock full of all of the trace nutrients. It's got something like 72 trace elements in it. And I've read university material over the years touting it in lawns as, I don't know, if your lawn has more trace elements in it, over time it just performs better. And it's one tool in the shed that I've used in my lawn, and I swear by it. It's awesome. Like, I'm not going to be putting it down like every, month and a half, but once a year or so. If you're putting it down in small quantities, I tend to do it after I core aerate so I can incorporate more of it into the soil profile. It works wonders. For other micronutrients, I'm not sure if this is really considered a organic product. I do use it in my lawn. They call it organic chelated essential micronutrients. This is a liquid that I spray down, and it comes with some of, I like to call them the major miners. So some of the major miners are in that. You're gonna end up getting a lot of iron from products like malorganite, and some of these things add iron into it. I'm guessing here, I haven't looked. No, not on that one. All right, so I guess you're not getting iron with your lawn box products. I couldn't remember. The last thing I want to talk about, though, is weeds. So this is a product that I have not yet tried. It's a product that I have researched a lot. The brand is brand new to me, this Weed Wipeout by Lawn Bright, but what I'm actually interested in is the corn gluten meal. Corn gluten meal is considered to be one of the only significant weed pre-emergence in the organic space. So if you want to prevent weeds, corn gluten meal, usually you're going to find it in a granular form, but corn gluten meal is your best option. And most people say it's not a good option. Like, it doesn't perform very well. But in my opinion, if you want to do a truly organic lawn, that's your only option. And corn gluten meal does have an NPK rating. It is kind of heavy for organics in nitrogen, so you're gonna get some nitrogen down on the lawn. And even if it doesn't prevent the vast majority of weeds, it's probably gonna prevent some of them. Now, you're probably gonna have weeds later on, even after you apply that stuff. But if you're doing it regularly, putting down corn gluten meal in granular or liquid form in both the spring and the fall, you're going to be getting a little bit of nitrogen, plus the amino acids that come from corn gluten meal, plus you're going to get a little tiny bit of the weed pre-emergent aspect. So over the course of seasons, you're probably going to end up having a lot fewer weeds in your lawn. Now this year, as you see my lawn behind me, there are some dandelions hidden in there. There's a little tiny bit of medic in there and a little teeny tiny bit of clover in there, but I haven't applied a pre-emergent at all this year. I haven't applied a chemical pre-emergent to this lawn in about 2 years now. I'd have to double check, but I think it's been almost 2 years now. From a lawn in this state, I think applying corn gluten meal in any form is going to give me just enough help in weed prevention to maintain a lawn that looks just like this for a long time to come. In the fall, you're going to be putting this stuff down usually as your temperatures drop below 70 degrees, your soil temperatures, because that's when the majority of the winter weeds start germinating. For me, that's going to be probably somewhere around the 1st of October, but you're going to have to monitor your soil temperatures to dial in the perfect date for you. Lastly, I'll speak about timing here. Like I said, organics tend to only be used in my lawn in the early parts of the fall. So for me, my first fall application tends to be around the last week of August or the first week of September. A good mid-fall application for me is usually around the last week of September to the first week of October. And then unreliably, I can get soil temperatures above 55 degrees into mid-October. But certain areas of the country, that's going to be no problem at all. Plenty areas of the country will have warm soil temperatures all the way to Halloween. So just monitor your soil temperatures and time these things out. It's not uncommon to put down 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of nitrogen to any lawn in the fall. With organics, so long as you're not using sodium nitrate as your nitrogen source, you can put down a lot at once and it will all slowly be used throughout the fall, or you can separate it out, kind of like what I do. I like to separate it out because I'm getting different kinds of ingredients going down at different times throughout the fall. I don't know, I just like to overcomplicate things sometimes. But that's if you're putting down a lot of nitrogen. You don't have to put down a lot of nitrogen. Let me adjust the camera here for my trick here. So up here, this is my low nitrogen plant. If you don't want to put that much nitrogen down and have less growth, then make sure to watch this video. And winterization is totally different. Almost none of the rules of fall fertilization apply, which is why I have a winterization video up here that I suggest watching next, because winterization comes really late in the fall.